Mount Massive Asylum for the Criminally Insane. 1960.
Why, Mr. Neasley? I thought you were in Arizona.
Just back. I do wish I could get you to call me Cy.
You look like the cat that caught the canary.
You'll know it when I catch that canary.
How's your wife, Mr. Neasley?
You cut me to the core.
And the kids? Lost count yet?
Stop, you're killing me. I need to file a patient transfer.
Old Mr. Nicely. All business, all the time. A transfer to the Sinyala facility? I've always wondered, what do they get up to down there?
Oh, you know, safeguarding the free world against nuclear annihilation and the tyranny of communism. Making $1 here and there.
This miss. Bogo.
Bogomolova.
If you say so, her file's marked critical security. You'll need permission from a doctor. Oh dear, it's another foreigner. Wernick?
Vernica?
Sister Lilia Bogomolova. You've read her files?
Sure. She's been catatonic for half a decade. Not doing us any good and eating up a damn impressive budget in security and sedatives. Way I see it, I sold that Easterman character a dead dog for the price of a prize horse.
Quite. I wonder, could you hand me that letter opener?
This Nazi dagger?
Just a moment, I want to play you a recording.
What the hell is all that?
It does nothing for you? Ah, well. Stop playing with that knife. I want to show you something. In her files, did you notice that all of the stories about Lilia failed to end?
I'm not sure what you mean.
1953.
Well, for instance, she was brought to Mount Massive by a young CIA agent named George Nichols. George had served for the Americans in Europe during the Zweiter Weltkrieg.
It means the World War II.
He lost an arm and a leg, a good portion of his face, not uncommon in a war of landmines and artillery. He had heard stories during the war about the Angel of Leningrad, the Russian Joan of Arc. They called her Bogomolova, Russian for beloved of God, a child of Russian landowners exiled by the revolution. As a teenager, she was guided by the voice of God to return to her homeland and defend it against the Hun. Stories within stories. George heard a Russian prisoner of war tell a story he heard from a Finnish nurse. Lilia not only survived 3 years of the most brutal warfare possible, but proved herself a deadly hunter. Bogomol is also Russian for praying mantis, an ambush predator, a sexual cannibal. She could disappear anywhere, in the shadows, among statues, among the corpses frozen stiff in the Russian winter. I suppose she thought she was protected by God, so long as she was doing God's work. I had heard of her myself. Among German officers, she was an object of terror and fascination. Though once we admitted defeat, when Germany began its retreat from Stalingrad, God must have decided Bogomolova's work was done because he stopped protecting her. What happened next was gruelingly reconstructed by George Nichols years later, long after the war. George was one of the CIA's earliest recruits, assigned to trace missing Mutual Security Act funds. It let him foster a growing fascination with Lilia Bogomolova until it became an obsession.
A Nazi officer and Obergruppenführer retreating from Stalingrad captured her. Lilia slashed his face while he was trying to restrain her. In punishment, he chopped off the hand she had used to hold the knife. When she cursed him for it, he cut out her tongue. Who knows how he used her while they were on the rat line to the Mediterranean. I remember thinking God wasn't strong enough to protect her from the combined efforts of a crumbling Reich and a nascent CIA. But God doesn't level mountains, he gives us the strength to climb. Lilia didn't need a tongue to pray. And in Genoa, the night before she was going to be dragged onto a boat to Argentina, there was a miracle. She could speak again. And after all of her time listening to the voice of God, she could speak with his tongue. And she gave the Obergruppenführer's bodyguards and staff some ideas. She walked out of Genoa and wandered into the forests of Eastern Europe, where she was lost years, a time cloaked in mystery, just like Christ.
But villagers and travelers reported finding the inexplicable in the wilderness, corpses transformed into religious statuary. Poor George thought Sister Lilia witnessed something. In the siege of Leningrad, in the abuse and corruption of the aftermath, in a wilderness consecrated by the blood of whole nations. Something about the 20th century, something about the mind of God. Years later, fortunes began to vanish. Wealthy families, industrialists funded with American dollars to rebuild Europe would hemorrhage all of their money and vanish from society. When their corpses were found, they would be mutilated fractions of themselves. It was something the CIA could not abide, and so young George Nichols was sent to investigate. Searching ruined estates, hearing stories of the Angel of Leningrad, of Sister Lilia, of the Beloved of God. Putting together the story you've just heard. Getting closer and closer, finding crime scenes, finding evidence that the legends were true, until he found her. Sister Lilia Bogomolova. For years, she was a religious parasite, exploiting the spiritual vacuum in the hearts of the wealthy elite, turning their fortunes to ash, turning their hunger for conquest against their own bodies. George Nichols never stepped on a landmine. He made it unscathed through the Second World War. So lucky you could call it miraculous. Everything he lost, he did to himself, at the instruction of God, as told to him by Sister Lilia. When George brought her to us, I half believed that was as much her idea as the agency's. Maybe the wealth and corruption of America was too great a temptation. But wherever she goes, she makes acolytes, witnesses to testify half-finished stories, because they end with the teller cutting out his tongue. Half of these patients are former staff, doctors, administrators, bureaucrats not unlike yourself. In the first 6 months she was at Mount Massive, we lost nearly 20% of our budget to her influence. Utter waste. And 10% of staff to self-mutilation, suicide, and the blades she somehow kept managing to hide among her gowns. To kill those she could not manipulate. She's too dangerous to keep, but too interesting to kill. Keeping her drugged to the gills was our only chance of survival. So by all means, send her to Sinyala. You're not sending them a dead dog. You're sending them a viper. And if they give her even an inch of liberty, God have mercy on their souls.